just a myth. They didn't have the technology when Doc fiddled with this back in the 20s and 30s. They didn't have machinery. Doc never owned machinery. And so he made it. If you go back and get the old telescope maker's handbook, volume 2, it's got a chart in there of how to water process minerals, and so many minutes sedimentation you get this grit, and so many you get that grit, and that's the way they separated grit to make telescope mirrors. I used to grind telescope mirrors, and you'd have a certain grit, you grind it real fast, then you'd polish it the next grit, and then the next, and the next, so you got it into a polished mirror. And you'd use water sedimentation. That's a crude way. Now you try to do 10,000 pounds of it, you got a problem.
Yeah.
You know, but if you're doing a few ounces of it, which he describes in there, how he did it in a bathtub and poured it out on the tiles in the sun, and then scraped it off on the, you'd be the rest of your life there. When I first started with it, he talked about a certain mesh, 400 mesh, so I run out and bought a 400 mesh screen, started sifting, and I saw I'd be an old man before I got the first 10 pounds sifted with 400 mesh screen. You can't do it. That's all folklore, you know. It's technically possible, but impossible
practically.
to do. And so this water process merely means they're using 17th and 18th and 19th century methods. They're still plowing with a crooked stick, you know. No miracles happen. And so I come up with the air process, and then I refine it still more. Great Reams person took come time to write the checks, and then they all vanished. But anyhow, Doc told us then, he put it on tape, and I've got a little miniature tape somewhere, but I haven't seen it in years, probably rotted by now, of him just barely able to talk, mumbling, and you had to listen careful what he's saying. But he wanted me and Dan and Manthe to continue the program. And with Manthe bailed out when he got in trouble. After the medical people got on him, and he spooked off, but he didn't get antagonistic like some of them, you know. But
yeah, like some of them being John Black, maybe.
Well, Black didn't. Black didn't do as bad as people think he did, but he did turn his back and run when they come in there, but he regretted it, and I still like John, and I think he's in Scottsdale area somewhere now, probably retired.
Yes, I've talked to him once.
And
he is retired, yeah.
I wish he'd have stayed in it, because he had apparently a photographic mind, and you know, could think and talk and good speech, and you know, all the charisma. And Doc had several others, I can't even remember their name, but had charisma, but they had greed hooked to the charisma. And anyway, when I first started making bin call, I sifted and I did this and I did that, and I couldn't even make enough to fill one bottle, you know, in a day's work. And I thought that was a lost cause. So I'm a Christian. I prayed. I said, Lord, one night I was laying in bed looking at a blank wall. I said, I don't know how to make bin call. Could you show me? And I closed my eyes, and it looked like a projector projected on the wall. A simple machine. I went down and built it. I had a little wood shop. I was in woodworking business for 30 years. Furniture design and all kind of stuff. But anyhow, I built it. It worked. And I bought a little old hand encapsulator. I still got it in my office as a souvenir. Wear the meat off your fingers in 2 hours, and I made up 6 bottles and sent out to key people that I knew, and I got an order back for about 1,000 bottles of Wapo with checks. Well, I couldn't even touch it. I mean, I set up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and my fingers were raw. Couldn't even begin to.
It was about time to get Jim the Third working by then, wasn't it? So
I was off.
Get back here and get to work, boy.
Well, I sent a sample of it first to the company that was making it for him up in Wisconsin. The ex-FDA lawyer started making it, or the Reams Minerals. And I can almost gleefully say I put him out of business in a short time. But anyhow, I sent it, I called him, he said, no, I says, I know how to make Mincol. I said, okay, I tested yours. You don't, so it's all right. And so I contacted the outfit that I'd heard of in Florida and asked if they would encapsulate it for me. I run off several hundred pounds of it. And they said, yeah, if you'll send the capsules with us, we don't have credit with that company. So I sent 750,000 capsules down there. Waited, no Mincol. They stole every capsule. They were making fake street drugs at night and selling. They took my capsules and never filled one. So I had to ship.
There's some bad people in this business here. And we're learning things today we never suspected.
Well, I don't go around talking this junk to people. Everybody's got these fairy tales. But then I sent it to Chicago, and I waited 6 weeks. Still no, they wouldn't get around to it. So in the meantime, everybody was sending in checks and orders, and I couldn't cash the checks, and I was broke as a convict.
Yeah.
And so then I sent it over to Philadelphia to some hippies that had an encapsulating place, and they finally encapsulated 250,000 capsules, and I began to fill in orders, and everybody was getting real antsy with me, you know. I paid you a month or 2 months ago, where's my stuff? And I didn't cash your checks. But anyway, I started that way, and people said, well, if you're going to make Mincol, we want Algazim, we want this, we want that. Doc called his Algavim, and we created Algazim. And they said, we want all the minerals, and we want to buy them